All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Peter. I'm going to be walking you guys through the USACO 2020 February contest Bronze Problem 2, Mad Scientist. Okay, so let's just jump straight into it. Farmer John's cousin Ben happens to be a mad scientist. Okay, normally this creates a good friction at family gatherings, but it can occasionally be helpful, especially when Farmer John finds himself facing unique and unusual problems with his cows. Farmer John is currently facing a unique and unusual problem with his cows. He recently ordered N cows between 1 and 1,000, consisting of two different breeds, Holsteins and Guernseys. He specified the cows in his order in terms of a string of N characters, each either H or G. Unfortunately, when the cows arrived at his farm and he lined them up, their breed formed a different string from his original string. Let us call these strings A and B, where A is a string of breed identifiers Farmer John originally wanted, and B is a string where he gets later on. Rather than simply check if rearranging the cows in B is sufficient to obtain A, Farmer John asks his cousin Ben to help him solve the problem with his scientific ingenuity. After several months of work, Ben creates a remarkable machine, the multi-cow breed Flippinator 3000, that is capable of taking any substring of cows and toggling their breeds. All H's become G's, and all G's become H's in the substring. Farmer John wants to figure out the minimum number of times he needs to apply this machine to transform his current ordering B into his original desired ordering A. Sadly, Ben's mad scientist skills doesn't extend beyond creating genius devices, so you need to help Farmer John solve his computational conundrum. Now, our input format, the first line of input contains N, and the next two lines contains the string A and B respectively. Each string has N characters that are either H or G. So this is an example of the input. Okay, you have the first line is N, which in this case is 7, and then your next line is a string for A. In this case, we have G, H, 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 G, H, H. And then the next line would be B, which is H, H, G, 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 H, H. Okay, our output is going to be, you have to print the number of times the machine needs to be applied to transform B into A. In this case, it would be 2. Now, first, Farmer John can transform the substring that corresponds to the first character alone, transforming B into G, H, G, 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 H, H. Okay, so he took the first string, or the first character in the string, H, and flipped it to become G. Next, he can transform the substring consisting of the third and fourth characters, giving A. Of course, there are other combinations of two applications of the machine that will also work. Okay, so in this case, to finally get A, he takes the substring at 3 and 4, which is G and G, and he flips it to become H and H, and then this substring B will now match substring substring A, sorry. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and jump into how to solve this problem. Now, I've already imported multiple different inputs so that we can test it out later. Okay, so, but for now, we're just going to use the first one. Okay, so to begin with, this problem isn't too bad. You just need to figure out the substring. Okay, so flipping the characters in each string is fairly simple. However, the main issue is being able to flip the substring in itself to be able to match the previous string A. Okay, so to begin with, we're gonna have to go ahead and open our file. Okay, so fin equals open 1.in. This will allow us to open the file and be able to have us read through the file and get all the information that we need. Okay, and you will be able to change the name of the file to be able to choose whichever file you want to work with. Next, we're going to go ahead and open the answer file that we're going to be writing into. Okay, so out equals open And I'm simply going to name this answer.fin, and specify that we're writing into the file, we have to specify W. Okay. The next step that we want to do is we're going to go ahead and make sure we get all the information that we need. Now, the format of the input files is a lot easier than other problems in the sense that all the information that we need is on separate lines. And so we can simply use read line to be able to take in all the information that we need. So the first line, we have 7. And to do this, we're going to use fin.readLine to take in the entire line. Now, we know that the first line is going to be an integer. So we are going to cast that to an integer for us to be able to use properly later. And we're going to go ahead and save it as n, which is specified in the problem. The next line is going to be the string a. So a equals fin.readLine. And again, the next line would be b. So fin.readLine. Now, in many cases, when you work with readline or with files in general, sometimes spaces can end up getting mixed into the substring. So to get rid of that, we're going to go use a equals a.strip. This will allow us to get rid of any white spaces before or after a string. Okay. Now, if you count this string right here, there are 7 characters. However, if we simply print out the length of a, you will see that the length of a is not quite 7, but instead 8. And so to get rid of that, we use strip, which will allow us to get rid of the white spaces before or after. So now if we print out the length of a, it will match the actual length to 7. And so we end up doing this to a and b. Okay. Now, going back to the problem, what we're trying to figure out is being able to keep track of the entire substring that we need to flip. Okay, so we need to set up a counter first to keep track of the number of flips we have. Okay, and we need to set up a for loop to be able to loop through the entire string. Now, the for loop can be set up to loop through the length of a or b, doesn't matter because a and b have the same length. So I'm simply going to have it loop through the length of b. Okay. Now, once we start looping through this string, we're going to want to check every single time that we loop through the string so that we check if the characters are matching. So in this case, G and H, do they match? If they don't, then we're going to go ahead and flip the character in the string B. So if A bracket I, which allows us to get the character A, does not equal to B bracket I, we're going to go ahead and flip. Okay. So we're keeping track of the number of flips. We don't have to actually flip it, but we're keeping track of the number of flips throughout the entire thing. Okay, now normally this would work. However, what we're trying to find is not the the number of times we flip every single character individually. We're trying to find the minimum number of times the machine needs to be applied. So we have to find the minimum number of flips. Okay, and to do that, we got to keep track of the substring. Okay, in this case, this example right here for the substring, the 3 and 4, we can flip both of these together to be able to match the substring in A, okay? Now to do this, we need something to keep track of how many times, of whether the substring is longer than 1, okay? So we can set up a Boolean to check. Now with a Boolean set up, if the mismatch is false, that means that nothing happens. However, if mismatch is true, then we know the next time we hit a mismatch, if the next character is also a mismatch, then we don't have to increment the number of flips again, because those two characters are next to each other and they can be flipped once. Okay, so in this if statement, we're going to go ahead and set up another if statement. If mismatch equals false, then that means that mismatch equal to true, and we have to switch it to true, because in this situation, we only hit this if statement if the characters are different. So now we have to change mismatch equals to true. Now, outside of that, we have to set up the else statement so that mismatch will be changed back to false if the characters are the same. Okay. Now, this might look a little confusing, but I'm going to go ahead and go explain it one more time and go through each the example string individually so that you guys will be able to see. Okay. So starting right here, where we were able to get n, a, and b. Okay, we know n is the number of integers, and a is string a, b is string b. And we strip it down so that there's no more white space. If and then we set up the number of flips as a counter for us to keep track of, and mismatch equals to false. Okay, so going back to this example here, what we're going to go ahead and do from the code is we're going to be looping through the entirety of string B and checking it with string A. Okay, so starting off, mismatch is false and flips is 0. Okay, now we go ahead and check the first character. Since G and H are different, it would hit this if statement. And since mismatch is false, we change mismatch to true and increment the flips by 1. Okay, and then we go to the next loop. In this next loop, mismatch is currently true. Okay, so we check. Do these characters match? If it matches, then we go to the else statement, which is mismatch equals false now. Okay, and then we go to the next one. The third character does not match, and so we go back to this if statement right here, and mismatch is now false. Mismatch equals to false, so now it's flipped to true instead, and the number of flips is incremented. So now mismatch is true, and the number of flips we have is 2. The third character we're looking at also does not match. So we go ahead and go back to this if statement. And since right now the number of flips is 2 and mismatch is equal to true, that means we don't end up going through this if statement, and we just continue on the loop. So as you can see, since these two characters, the third and fourth characters, are next to each other, we don't end up flipping them individually. We end up counting them as one flip. Okay, and then we go to the next one where the fifth characters, they match, and so mismatch will be now false. And you would continue this all the way into the end. So no matter how long the substring inside of B and A are that doesn't match, it would always count as only one flip as long as they're next to each other. Okay, and then once you loop through the entirety of the string, you would have the total number of flips that you need. Sorry, the minimum number of flips. Once you have the minimum number of flips, you're going to go ahead and do fout.write to write your answer into the file. Now, to write the number of flips into the file, you're going to go ahead and cast it back to a string. Okay, and to end off the program, you will need to close both files that you have opened. And once you run that and you check the answer, you get 2, which is the output that you would like.